right-hand side yet again. Yes, he's trying to pressure out the solo lane. We saw him do it in game 1 and a little bit in game 2. His goal is to kind of just pressure out Snowflake. Terra!
Oh my god! Oh my god! Brian Codex out here soloing Alfredo, the support, taking down the ADC. That's gotta be a clip that we throw somewhere, man. That was absolutely bonkers. Alfredo not feel the global ult, but she's here despite that. And we might see Apollo able to come as well. The final basic as Kairos tries to finish it off with the dash, but Fuzzy Clay did this, but regardless, it will be a Primal Fury going the way of Fuzzy and the Wuzzies, and now over 10,000 gold up before 20 minutes into the game, and it wants to be even more. Orden trying to chase out Kairos. It will be some peel, but Fuzzy joining in on the ultimate, gonna force out the ultimate from Kairos as well, and he might just get away, but it forces him to dash into a rough spot. Raijin dashes as well, trying to get damage from the Taiko Drum, so gets taken out before he can get more than one shot off, but Alfredo finding himself a double kill, looking for the triple. Fafnir low, triple kill coming out from Alfredo. He's going to look for the Quadra, getting low here, trying to find it onto the Artemis, but Double Mumble doing a great job of zoning him out and gets the dash to finish off the kill. Soul still alive, wants to put more damage into this Sobek, and he might be able to finish it off, and he does. 4 members fall from Going Ghost, only 3 members on the side of Fuzzy and the Wuzzies, and I gotta say,
That's all of their ults? Yeah. Oh.
huge! Oh my god!
Huge.
Yeah,
Oh,
let's
bro.
go!
My goodness.
That room. Can you knock up?
I have it in 1.
Damn. If we were all right, we could do gold. I just killed Matt too.
Kill the Bacchus.
Bacchus, easier kill.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to our Sunday cast here for you as we continue into our AGL playoff week 1. We're gonna take a little bit of a pause on that though. That'll be our second set later that we'll be bringing for you here. But right now we're gonna have some Collegiate here for you, and we have the pretty good matchup, I would say, is we're gonna have the B group of Alabama Crimson versus the Illini Blue coming into this match. Alabama Crimson is 4-0. And then Illini Blue are 2-2, so maybe a little bit different in the records, but from what I've seen as far as some previous casts and matches, some very good teams on here with the desk here for me. I have Drummer. Drummer, how excited for you at this match?
Hey, I'm pretty excited. It should be, I know both teams pretty good, so yeah, it should be a good time overall.
Oh, we're going to hop into those picks and bans right here. Not going to set you guys any more waiting. Should be interesting. Illini Blue do have that first pick as Alabama Crimson have that second one here. And as we started to see this kind of assassin item, more than the assassin, but assassin item meta come through, anything in particular, Drummer, that you're going to be looking for over these last couple of weeks, or just kind of what we've been seeing?
Yeah, I think unfortunately not too much has changed. People have just gotten more comfortable with like the meta picks, right? So we're starting to see like everyone's like they first banned Ardio here, of course. Like we're starting to see you're getting Ardio and Odin's gonna be like the first two. Everyone just doesn't want to deal with either of them, and then it's kind of a toss up between the other characters, such as like we see Raijin, Tiamat. But even then, like some ability hunters are getting banned too. Like I've seen Uller banned quite a bit just because like with those hunters and those, like you're saying, those assassin or mace items, just got such a good buff there, and everyone can make good use out of them.
Yeah, which is really nice because for me personally, it makes those last couple of bans pretty spicy because it's rather than banning out a specific position, you can kind of see what characters or players they're really trying to focus out. But in this first ban, as we're not to that second ban yet, kind of seeing a lot of these frontline picks. Ardio, Odin, which we've kind of seen in this first pick and ban for the last couple of months now, as well as Geb, who's made that resurgence with that ultimate change.
Yeah, for sure. Geb's another one. Like you're saying, I think frontliners right now are super strong because on any of those characters, or at least Odin, for instance, like you can build that mace tree, and it's like still pretty powerful. Now, of course, Tiamat, because God has like 8 abilities, so gotta get rid of him.
Yeah, Tiamat, nerf after nerf, she's still in these top pick and ban, and while we have seen some counters for it, I think for a lot of levels, most people, they just don't want to deal with it, and understandably so. But, you know, with these bans coming through, interesting to see Emoja is sometimes I really say this a lot. Yamoja's a very high skill character. It's very easy to play. Press 2, heal your character. Heal your team, put up the walls. But to really put that next level, it's a different level there for sure. And to see someone ban it, it really means that they don't want to deal with that extra level, or maybe Alabama Crimson do have that kind of level player. So interesting to see that first ban. But again, seeing this trend, a lot of frontliners banned out, both Guardian and Warrior wise. So not something that's totally crazy, but definitely focusing on those front picks.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right with the skill ceiling for Yamoja. She is a very technical character, and like you can make really good decisions on Yamoja, and you can also make really bad decisions. And unfortunately, like Ymir as well, sometimes you don't like using her little whirlpool things. You think you made the right decision, and ends up just wrecking your team inadvertently. But yeah, if it's something you don't want to deal with, if it sets like a player preference, like perhaps Illini Blue just really doesn't like dealing with Emoji no matter who's playing them, and just get it out there. It might be like a comfort ban for them.
Yeah, and as we see, the last ban roll through Persephone, who I haven't seen have a lot of success, so interesting if we might see her falling out of these bans, but I know personally that it's not fun to deal with, being just trapped in one spot with auto characters where you're not very auto-based outside of Hunters, and even with Hunters going the ability, can be very difficult to deal with, but with the focus of the front lines being the bans, it's not surprising to see this pick that we've seen rise, as this Guardian Khepri is the first pick for Illini Blue.
Oh yeah, Kefri's another really good one. I think that if you're quick with that Kefri res, it's like fighting a sixth person sometimes. Hovering a Hou-Yi though, I feel like we've seen a lot of Hou-Yi, but I feel like it's back and forth whether Hou-Yi is really good or not, right? Like some people say they really don't like Hou-Yi. I personally think Hou-Yi is great, but I guess it really just comes down to like who has the degree in trigonometry, if you're able to hit those ricochets. But other than that, like he can be really strong, but I think it really comes down to those ricochets, and if you can hit those reliably or get some sneaky hits in there, he's pretty strong.
Yeah, since this new Season 8 map has come out, personally, I've been kind of surprised we haven't seen more of that anti-crit passive Hou-Yi has when crit was at the beginning, and just all the different walls that you can ricochet off of, and even just like Draugr, where my first thought was Hunters were going to kind of 1v1 around that a lot, to which SPL, AGL, whatever it might be, I haven't seen a whole lot of that, so I'm enjoying seeing Hou-Yi. Of course, doesn't really have that second damaging ability with that reveal, that he has there, and doesn't have any CC immunity, so by no means is he overpowered, but a good team fight character. On the other side, though, speaking of team fight, Hunbats and was something that looks like it is a Hachiman. Maybe not your most team fight god, but definitely some team fight here Illini Blues drafted.
Oh, yeah, Hunbat's probably one of the best team fight ultimates you can have. It's just so oppressive when you throw it onto a team. They're just stuck running away from that center column, and it's instantaneous. So it could throw you for a loop if you're fighting and you're in the zone and don't see that coming. It's really disorienting to all of a sudden be facing the direction, running away, and you have to beads it really quick, or you just got to do something.
Yeah, and particularly in the matchup on this backline, Alabama Crimson drafting their ADC, drafting their mid, presumably. I mean, there's always that chance for it to go somewhere else, but I think on a team that's 4-0, you're not going to do anything super janky. And for those two characters, they both have some leaps that can be pretty easily interrupted by Hunbats. Hunbats can chase, so as a Hunbats player and as a jungler myself, I'm looking at this matchup, and it may not be the best thing, but I do see some chances to have some advantages. Something that I'm not super excited about, though, dealing with the Sylvanas. Hard CC to kind of hit, and as well as with that new passive change that kind of makes his late game a lot more dangerous, I feel like. All around good Guardian.
Yeah, true, and he does have that the ranged auto attacks is a little bit safer poke. He can kind of hang out in the back a little bit, pick and choose his encounters. But I think you're right with the Hunbats. I feel like if I were the Hunbats player, I'm not too worried right now. I think that he has a reasonably favorable matchup against at least the Hou-Yi and the Raijin.
Especially if with this Khepri, if he's able to have kind of a pocket Khepri in this scenario where you're diving this Hou-Yi Raijin, specifically Hou-Yi, who doesn't have any CC immunity, has to use those beads. If you can get some relics and some ults and then res right out, with all the cooldown you can get in the jungle, going that Jotun's first, Bumba's spear, that kind of start, where your ult's probably going to come up before anybody else's and really reinitiate that fight. So I really do like that. Again, though, Alabama Crimson, if they can really play around the Sylvanas, play that kind of slower, sustained poke fight with Raijin, who's one of the best poking mages, Hou-Yi with, like you said, that trigonometry of those ricochets, can get some surprising poke out there as well. It can be pretty good, but as we move to this later part of the phase, Alabama Crimson, not really looking in any direction, banning away the Morgan, and Cerberus, some very good picks to deal with. And on the other side, very pointed picks here by Illini Blue, right at the jungle as they ban Kamazots and Loki away.
Yeah, if you're Illini Blue, I obviously look, you're like, okay, well they need a solo laner and they need a jungler. So yeah, I would get rid of just find the assassins you don't want to deal with and definitely ban those two right away. The Morgan's an interesting one. I'm not sure what their thought were. I guess they don't want double Hunbat ults or something crazy like that. I don't know.
Probably just that age-old double Hunbat Salt, double Fear is pretty messy. Because honestly, in this match, there's not a whole lot else I'm looking at if I'm playing Morgan. Maybe Hoagie if I were trying to burst an objective, burn it down before someone gets there. Maybe if you could do like a quick Kepri res on yourself or someone else to get them out. But honestly, outside of Hunbats, no real alts there. However, if they do lock in this Ratatasker, I can definitely see why you wouldn't want the enemy team having another semi-global alt.
True. So it looks like they're going to lock in and go with a Tsukuyomi. I don't know about that. I was really liking the Ratatasker pick at first, just because that mobility out of his ultimate would be unmatched against the other team. Because I mean that ultimate allows him to escape, to initiate, just rotate really fast. Like it's a great ability, and I feel like it would outplay that Hunbats in terms of rotations. But they're going to go with the Tsukuyomi instead, which is pretty solid character overall, though.
I got some good dive. I personally like Tsukuyomi with the Kepri rather than against, just because that alt's pretty telegraphed. That damage dash is where most of it, so you can kind of get rezzed and then kind of counteract right immediately while you're in that alt, so they can turn on you pretty quick. But I can see very much why they were not wanting this Morgan. Tsukuyomi, Rat, two big alts that are not something you really want to give the other team to have. But I'm right there with you. I think jungle matchup, this does kind of would have favored the Ratatasker, especially with that early pressure that you can get on the Hunbats, that alt that you can just kind of out-rotate him. But Illini Blue, they double down on this team fight that they've kind of got. Grab this Scylla with that big I'm a Monster, and then, of course, one of the biggest team fighters we always talk about, Cthulhu.
Yeah, they definitely have doubled down on it. They know exactly what they want to do. Get in, throw big circle abilities around, and that's it. Whereas I feel like with Alabama here, they're more focused, right? Yeah, sure, Hoagie's ultimate's a huge circle, but like Raijin's ultimate, Sylvanas is very close range, very up in your face. They're looking for a little bit different of a play style there. But I wonder if they're going to lock this Cabrakan, and they are. Okay. Cabrakan's an interesting one. He can be really devastating. His ultimate, if you time it right, can just shut out a whole team depending on like where they throw it, if it's in one of like the smaller, narrow areas of the jungle. But overall, I don't know. Cabrakan's pretty strong, but I feel like against Cthulhu, Cthulhu has a lot of good, really good abilities.
Yeah, and just looking at this lineup, Alabama Crimson, it's pretty obvious. They've got a pick comp. Sylvanas or Cabrakan's going to set somebody up, and then you're going to have Raijin, Hoyi able to leap in, Tsukuyomi right there. They're going to just pick somebody off and get the kill. If not, though, if Illini Blue can play this well and group as a team, any one of those individual players is going to have to go into a Kepri alt, Hunbats alt, Hachiman, Scylla Peel, Cthulhu, all of his AoE stuff. Like, if I'm one person trying to pick somebody, if I see 5 people, I'm pretty much dead. And on the other side, if I'm Illini Blue, just stay together, just stay as a group, and we should be pretty fine. But going into this first game here, Drummer, who are you kind of favoring?
Well, unfortunately, I think it's going to have to go to Illini Blue. The only thing I think that Alabama has is the mid lane. I think Raijin's slightly better than Scylla, but just based on the team comp, I think Illini's got it. They have a pretty strong front line, a really good jungler who can just stick to people with no issue. I don't know how Alabama Crimson's going to play this one.
We'll go ahead and get you over to the game here. I, myself, will be going over to hop over onto the cast, but leading the game-by-game cast gameplay is going to be Argent Surge.
All right, thank you very much, Batu and Drummer there. I, myself, am Argent Surge. I'm joined by... Wait a minute, did I just see you 2 seconds ago, Batu?
Hang on, let me change my shirt. No, it was me. Somebody else. Yes, that was me. How are you doing?
I thought I just saw you over there a few minutes ago, but I'm doing all right. How are you doing today on this fine Sunday evening?
Doing pretty good. Watched a little bit of football. I'm now here to watch some cool collegiate spine, especially with some of these players here. Illini Blue, we've been able to see a little bit, and as well as Alabama Crimson. I think week 1 or 2, we've got to watch them with some notable names. If you're in the rank scene, Fireball Ninja, Mashy, Lil Roughneck. So definitely some big name players that I've seen around, and I'm sure some people who've seen on the upper end. So should be an exciting game on both sides.
And I know on the desk, you asked Drummer his thoughts going into this team comp where he leaned towards Illini Blue. Are you mirroring that backing here, or do you think that Alabama Crimson might have the advantage going into this game 1?
Well, just based on namesakes, I got to kind of give it a little bit of Alabama Crimson, and I'll be honest, I was not quite registering that it was Alabama Crimson, it was this roster, but like looking at these teams, when you've got these kind of players, it can make sense why they're going this kind of pick comp. You've got Bracken who can grab a pick.
Speaking of picks, hold on there. There's a lot of energy and action going on in the duo lane there, as we see already that the Illini Blue duo lane is not scared to fight into the Sylvanas Huyi. Sylvanas normally seen as one of the high pressure Guardians you pick in duo lane. Huyi a little bit on the lower side. How do you think this duo lane is really going to play out when it comes to the pressure v pressure?
Well, it's pretty obvious. Alabama Crimson, it's a kill lane. Sylvanas roots somebody, you pull them in, Huyi stuns them, and you get enough damage off that in the waves to kill. You don't have a whole lot of clear. Sure, Sylvanas has the AoE autos, but not a whole lot of damage outside of that. And you're playing to do Khepri Hachiman, which is kind of one of your, I would say, one of the safest solid clears you're going to have. Hachi throws down the AoE with the that 2 that we see right there, that banner. Gets him a little bit of attack speed that he can get on top of it. And then, of course, Khepri has that dot, which early game does some serious clear, especially that level 1, 2, and 3. So really, this lane should be a pretty simple, straightforward. Illini Blue plays safe, don't allow themselves to die. Alabama Crimson, they're going for a pick. So outside of that, I think it should be pretty quiet unless Alabama Crimson kind of take that edge there and get a pick.
Right, and kind of transitioning that early game idea over to builds, we see that Kodaris here actually decides to go for the Ankh first relic into the Sylvanas. Ankh isn't really something you see picked too often, much less first pick. How do you like this as the first relic that the support picks up?
I think specifically for this team comp, it's something they really want. This Sylvanas is really going to be mostly initiation, that mid 3v3. Sure, Raijin can leap in, Tsukiyomi can ult, himself in there and whatnot, but you're really looking for Sylvanas to kind of be the front of this pick. And when he, is right in there with the team, everybody's diving, he presses 2. That's a heal for all the team. You get that Ankh on there, that's a team effect that you're going to get on everybody. Sure, maybe until it's upgraded, it's not going to give you as meaningful of an impact. When you upgrade it, it gives you that extra damage on those targets healed, but I don't mind it, and especially in this matchup, what else is Khepri going to go? If he goes Blink, you're not really going to look to Blink on a Sylvanas early. He's just going to root you, ult you. It's not really the kind of stuff you want to go. Raijin can dash away. Huyi can leap away, so it's not really going to be an effective first. And honestly, I can't really think of any relic except maybe like Bracer or Belt that I get early, and even still, I don't think that's going to give you as much value early.
So you see, besides the early pressure now transferring over to Alabama Crimson in dual lane, now Illini Blue duo having to send to their tower instead of how the first few waves were flipped there. No first blood yet. It seems both teams are just kind of content to farm, try to get level 5, as a lot of these members on either side have that big power spike of level 5 with their ultimates getting online. Both junglers getting as we see Alabama Crimson going for a purple invade, but Illini Blue is rotating. Khepri might not live long enough to see the rotation come through. He does manage to hang in there, though. Huyi does get the ult out, or the jump out of there, but Sylvanas is not going to be so lucky. Not quite 5, not quite enough damage, and the support for Alabama Crimson will fall for first blood. However, Alabama Crimson now coming back on the back line with the Tsukiyomi
nice
ultimate.
root.
Oh, big ricochet, almost bringing down Huyi. Or Hachiman. He lives long enough to have to fall from Taiko Drums. Now Khepri in danger of Taiko Drums. The last beat not able to take him down, though, and that purple buff will end up falling in the end to Alabama Crimson. That was a whole lot of engage, reinitiation by Illini Blue, and then reinitiation by Alabama Crimson there. But ends up going, all in all, I think Alabama Crimson's way.
Yeah, it definitely goes a little bit Alabama Crimson way. First blood does go to Illini Blue, and that goes on the Hunbats, which is huge. You want to try to get ahead of the Tsukiyomi, because Tsukiyomi, he very much wants to snowball off a lot of that pressure, because he doesn't want to fight you in the jungle 1v1. He doesn't. He want to fight you 1v1 in a poke battle, where he just can poke you out, and that usually comes later, where we're starting around some of these laning fights in the 3v3 and around the objectives, to where in the jungle, Hunbats, when he's done fighting, he can leap over a wall, and he's kind of out of there. Sure, Tsukiyomi can ult and follow him, but for the most part, Hunbats can kind of pick these engagements. And when you're ahead, that means you should only pick those winning engagements for you.
Yeah, we saw there as well. Tsukiyomi came in with the Piercing Moonlight, got some damage on some members of Illini Blue, but didn't have any mana to follow up past that point. So maybe that is going to be a point where they can potentially turn it. Speaking of turning, the mid lane here in Illini Blue in trouble. Sylvanas knocks up the Scylla. I think the dot's going to be enough. Scylla falls under a T1 tower, and her Khepri's soon to follow with a nice pull from Sylvanas. Pulls him right back into the middle of Alabama Crimson's triple damage dealers there. I'm counting Sylvanas as a damage dealer in that extent, because I mean he did majority of the damage on Xander there before he died, and he got the nice pull. Sylvanas is a full-blown carry at this point.
And unfortunately, going back a little bit, Burnt Nacho having to defend that purple did not have his Jotun's finish, so he didn't have that Fear No Evil up yet, because if he has that Fear No Evil, that 3-man dive goes absolutely pear-shaped so quickly. Just 3 people under there. Sylvanas has the beads down. They're at least trading 1 for 1 there. If, 1 for 2 worst case scenario. But because not able to finish that ultimate, didn't get that cooldown on that first ult, which means now he's got to try to look for a gank to try to counter this pressure. And trying to fight into a Hou Yi might not be the easiest thing as a Hunbat.
Hou Yi doesn't have any wards there, though, and he walks right into the Fear No Evil, takes all the ticks of it, but manages to get his jump and get out before anything gets too crazy. Nice Ricochet to return some damage back on the Hoon Bots. Now the chase is on Hou Yi, 1 HP. Hoon Bots low as well, but he has the Scarab's Blessing. I'm allowing him to chase under T1 tower. Really depends on if the speed buff will allow him to get there. Speed buff runs off, and the tower damage is too much. The Scarab's Blessing falls before the tower actually shoots Hoon Bots, so he ends up dying to tower there. Now Tsukiyomi Piercing Moonlight goes through. Only gets 1 hit on Scylla, though. Scylla managed to stay alive at very low HP. This is now a long chase. Kodoris throws his life away to save the life of his mid laner there. Very unfortunate dive attempt by Illini Blue that really does not go in their favor.
Yeah, a little bit too far there by the Burnt Nacho. I don't know if he just didn't have the cooldowns and or didn't have the mana, but just couldn't get that last ability to get Zella under his tower. And unfortunately, that Khepri ult, that res, is only level 1, so it doesn't last super long and doesn't give that much HP. So he's unfortunately not going to even get the 1 for 1. And then, of course, Kodoris able to take out his own life to save his mid laner, so a little bit of life save there, but still had to back. And now with that, about a level and a half lead here for Zord in the mid lane, and on a Raijin having a lead with you have a Tsukiyomi and a Sylvanas at your hip is huge.
Yeah, and that was actually the first ultimate we saw from the Khepri so far this game. Is all the other engagement up to this point, Khepri was level 4. He didn't have Scarab's Blessing up yet, so that first attempt not going too well here, as we see Scylla continuously getting poked out, now at half health here. She can't even step up to try to clear the wave. They really got to get something going if you're Illini Blue here to try to turn the tide of the immense pressure that mid lane currently has.
Yeah, and part of that pressure, look at those red dots on your mini-map, kind of covered by some of the players there, but there are 3 of these 4 choke points have red wards instead of blue wards, so Illini Blue really don't have any way of knowing who's going in or out. Starting to get a couple down now, try to get some of this pressure back, but just the vision from Alabama Crimson, they know when they can play aggressive and start bullying out the Scylla, and without Hunbat's there, and they know he's not there, there's not a whole lot that the Xander is going to be able to do here in this mid lane. Like, he has to just step back, take as little poke as he can, and just try to clear under his tower.
Well, you know what I always say, wards win games, and hopefully whoever places more wards here will end up reigning supreme. Currently, that's Alabama Crimson. And going into 9 minutes into the game, currently have a 2k gold lead. A lot of the levels are also in their favor. XP difference of almost 3k now at this point. The jungle chasm is not there yet. There is still even levels, but as we just saw, Tsukiyomi is willing to step up and start to steal these back camps. And though back camps don't really offer too much for Tsukiyomi on the invade, what it really does is it denies the Burnt Nacho from getting any farm and any levels from that. So that's really going to start impacting him if they don't get a handle on this soon. Rotating a little bit over to the ADC builds here, we see Hachiman finished his Crushers, now looking to, I believe, go into potentially Trans here, whereas Hou Yi is going more of the old school ADC build here with Ikavol and looking to go into Odibo. How do you feel about Hou Yi of all characters going into this? Well, actually, hold on, that's a question off the way, as we see a lot of pressure going in solo lane, forces out the madness by Cthulhu here, but also gets a kill on the Kabrakan. So all in all, 2 ults to kill the solo laner. I think that though that's quite a bit of resources, it is a Kabrakan that was necessary, and it also gives that push back into the game.
Well, I think the biggest part there is they got his bead, so that means that if they want to treat trying to, flex over there on that right side of the map, because they don't really have it in mid or in the ADC, as we just saw Random kind of getting pushed back there under his tower as they traded out some ultimates. So we can definitely see the Gold Fury side of the map is very much favor of Alabama Crimson, but I don't mind it. You've got a Cabrakan. He doesn't have really any way to get away from Cthulhu Killer in the jungle. He can wall him off, but there's still ways you can get around that, and that still alt for alt. I think it's a pretty even trade there as well. Maybe favoring Roughneck here in the Cabrakan just because he's got that breastplate, he's got the shorter alt going into looks like a Bumbus Hammer or Spear late game. But I don't mind that. If they can continue to bring this pressure with this Hun Bats, because next time they gank, that's an even easier kill, because instead of being able to beads and run back to his tower, that's no beads and dead in the middle of the lane. So if they can continue this pressure, keep something going over there, I think it'll be good. But going back to what you mentioned about these builds, a couple of the Hunters players that I've been able to talk to is I'll be honest, probably my worst role, so I'm by no means any sort of expertise over there in that long ADC left-clicking lane, but I personally love it, because right now there's so many builds you can go. You can go this kind of flavor of the month ability, mace, assassin build if you want, or you can go into, your bow build. Bows really didn't get nerfed too much since the maces got, their buff, so they did get nerfed, of course, patch or two ago with the Odie bow in particular, losing a lot of that attack speed, but it's still very easy to overcap with Leather Cow, maybe one of your frontliners getting you a Shogun to help you out, even without it go full attack speed. So I really like the bow build. I would say, if I'm playing either of these gods, I would get the switch, and there we go. There's that pressure I was talking about. Illini Blue, right on cooldown, go right back over, although with that, Koss is going to feel the wrath of the counter rotation by Alabama Crimson.
Yeah, it was a really good play by Alabama Crimson. They're already in the neighborhood taking the purple buff. Their soul laner goes, hey, I'm getting ganked again. I'm dead. And they go, all right, well, I mean, we're already, we're going by the grocery store. Might as well pick up a Hachiman on our way home. So they end up falling random chaos here. Now the pressure continues on. Taiko drums being used to pull back the Capri. Scared Blessing was available, but the CC chain was too strong, unable to keep him un-CC'd enough to actually cast the ultimate on himself. He too will fall. The dual lane for Illini Blue, either respawning or still in grayscale. That's going to be a gold fury for Alabama Crimson. Scylla, the only person in the area to potentially steal, but she's going to stay content getting her red buff here, and the gold fury will fall Alabama Crimson's way.
Yeah, they needed to get that Kepri to be able to get the gold fury, because Kepri res on a Scylla while you're trying to do an early 12-13 minute gold fury, that's just asking for bad things to happen. But the other thing as well, look at Scylla's build, as she's getting a little bit of pressure there, but not quite enough mana for Zord to be able to do anything else. But look at the build. He is not backed yet. Still sitting on just that Chronos Pendant. So sure, he could go in with ult, but he's sitting on a full flat pin item right now, or a full soul gem. Looks like he's going to be going probably Magus. Maybe
That's probably
Deso.
a safe bet. I'm thinking maybe Deso. It might just be going to pump out that CDR there, since he decided to go with Conduit Gem instead of Stains of Time.
Could be. He's already got that Chronos Pendant, so he's got a nice... Effectively, you can think of it as 30% of cooldown with that Chronos passive, with second off every 10 seconds, 10% CDR on there as well. But yeah, and just right there, I do like, though, right off the bat, Illini Blue, they know they really can't contest. Go right to that Pyromancer. Also got a speed buff invade, and Fireball Ninja is here. I'm a little sad. I've only got one kill out of all of these fights, and I got my speed invaded. I'm maybe not tilted, but a little bit upset.
Yeah, speaking of a fight, there's one potentially breaking out here. Hoonbot decides to teleport in on the monkey onto the Tsukiyomi. Doesn't get anything. He uses Fear No Evil to try to turn back some damage. Hui goes into the air, stays alive. Piercing Moonlight returns a lot of damage back. That Sunbreaker will come out and space out the fight, forcing the disengage on both teams there. That was honestly a lot closer of a 3v3 than I thought it would possibly happen when Hoonbots uses ult there, because the second he drops it down, yeah, he gets Hui with it, but he's not able to turn too much damage on him. Tsukiyomi, however, starts using Piercing Moonlight right before the Fear No Evil starts actually channeling out on him. So he's completely CC immune and potentially could have returned a lot of damage. Fortunately, just seemed to be a lot of swinging, a lot of body hits on both sides, but no knockout punch on any of the members on either team.
Yeah, and that's really down to just kind of early game right now. Humbat's really only 2 items deep, doesn't have a whole lot of damage himself. Kepri, it's Kepri. Nobody's going to talk about Kepri being a damage dealer as Hunbats without ult is blinking on Suki. He's got him low, but I don't know if they're going to have the damage to finish him. Yeah, I got to give up that chase as Roughnecks here, but they're holding this W key hard right now.
Yeah, Roughneck now finding himself in the middle. 4 members of Illini Blue now trying to find his way out, but he is a Kabrakan. However, I'm a Monster deals a lot of damage to him. Not as much as I think they were expecting, though, and he's still alive, managed to find his way to his speed buff and out there. Illini Blue now find themselves diving a T2 tower. I don't think they're willing to tank. They're trying to disengage here. The Taiko Drums pulling back Kepri once again. Kepri getting very low, ends up falling. Ultimate's not available for him. Now Cthulhu finds himself in danger. He ends up popping the Thorns to return a lot of damage back on Fireball Ninja. Fireball Ninja will fall in return. On the other side of the map, though, a 1v1 happens. Zella ends up soloing Random Chaos. That was a very strange choice to push there by Illini Blue, and Alabama Crimson, all in all, made them get punished for it pretty well.
Yeah, as soon as that Scylla ult doesn't kill, I think you just got to back out of there. That's your big damage in your fight. You kill the Kabrakan, you can reset, look for the Tsukiyomi, get 2 kills, and then sure, you overextend, maybe 1 or 2 of you fall, then it's an even 2 for true trade, worst case scenario. But without getting any of those kills, you're now in a rough spot as Zella looking here, drops the red. I'm expecting him to look for Xander here. Here's him on Harpies. This could be really bad. Oh.
He's picking up on the ward before getting there, so Xander knew what was coming. It still ends up having to use the beads and the Aegis, though, just to survive the Hu-Yi CC of all things. So that was honestly a good play by Zella. Ends up getting that red buff, sitting there waiting for Scylla to come in. Pulls both of her relics, so she's going to be very vulnerable target for Tsukiyomi here as this Piercing Moonlight is almost back up off of cooldown. This next fight here is going to be really, really cautious and dangerous for Illini Blue if they aren't careful. As we're seeing, though, this gold lead... Actually, hold on. We're seeing Raijin almost get returned to base. I'm a Monster ends up getting channeled, but no damage ends up falling from that. Sylvanas pulls up, and now team fight started. The Nature's Wrath comes up, knocks up a lot of members of Illini Blue. Ends up falling Hoon Boss with the dot damage. Their Piercing Moonlight takes Tsukiyomi to the back line. So, Scarab's Blessing keeps the ADC alive for Illini Blue for now. Ends up using his charged archer or mounted archery to get out of there. Taiko Drums ended up hunting down Scylla on the back end of that as well. That's a 2-for-0 trade, and that gives a lot of pressure for Alabama Crimson as Primal Fury is about to respawn.
Yeah, and because no actives and no ultimate, Scylla just kind of dies there. Really trigger happy there, trying to get that kill on the Raijin, who still has Aegis up, and when this Gold Fury is about to come up, and your really best chance right now is to contest with that Scylla ult, I don't think that was the play to play that aggressive in that time. And then, of course, just following up afterwards, just too much damage right now from Alabama Crimson. Not just their mid and jungle, but everybody on the team. Kabrakan and the Sylvanas doing huge damage, and because of that, no ult from Scylla, no real contest. They have to give up this Gold Fury again.
Yeah, now we see the... Well, actually, Pyromancer does seem to be almost falling here. Kabrakan, though, ends up blinking over the wall, using the Tectonic Shift to zone out the rest of Illini Blue and ends up stealing it himself there. They just lost the second objective that they were hoping they were going to be able to return, and they lose a T2. This is a major gold shift in the way of Alabama Crimson, now at 9K gold ahead of the Order side team here. The XP difference up to 12,000 as well. The only real role that seems to be even for the most part is jungle right now and kind of a bit of solo lane, but otherwise there's like a 4 or 5 level gap in support right now. But again, adding to my narrative that Sylvanas is himself a carry. The mid lane has a 2 level differential, and in the duo lane there is currently a 5 level differential, Hu-Yi being 18 and Hachiman only being level 13. If you're Illini Blue here, what's the conversation going on in the team comms right now? What are you really trying to do to get back into this game?
Well, your big playback in the team comp is team fights, but right now you're so far behind like Scylla. 1 level behind Sylvanas, the support. Your ADC, the lowest level in the game besides your own support. You just have no damage right now. And these tanks, look at Kabrakan. He has just nothing but health right now with that E-staff going a little bit offensive there, hybrid. And then your support, just lots of HP. Sovereignty on top of the Lotus Crown, and then going into a Pridwin for a little bit of more of a shield of effective damages. Cthulhu feeling the HP levels right now, getting caught out, and that Kabrakan wall should be his doom.
Yeah, the descent into madness was used there. Not enough to save his life, finding himself in the middle of 4 members of Alabama Crimson. And now the Fire Giant being started up here. Hoonbots is making his way around the backside, though, but in the meantime, his backline is getting dove by Tsukiyomi and Kabrakan. They're doing a really good job of zoning them out. However, it doesn't look like anybody recognizes that Hoonbots is in the back. Burnt Nacho's trying to dance around, is unable to do anything there, ends up getting absolutely annihilated by the ricochet damage after the Nature's Wrath is used by Sylvanas. The Fire Giant will fall for Alabama Crimson, and that, I mean, all of Alabama Crimson has beads. That was the first relic that they all picked up. None of them went anything else. And if you're Hoonbots and you're more or less the only real damage dealer able to deal damage, and you're going into 5 members all with beads, you're feeling pretty hopeless going into this.
I mean, if you're going in there, you're hoping they don't see you last second. You can, fear them all off just long enough for them not to beads and get that just, split second steal, which is already unlikely as
Hold on now, that
Warden
Kraken ends up
here.
blinking in under this right Phoenix here, dealing a lot of damage to the Cthulhu. Cthulhu desperately trying to get out. The Sunbreaker will take him down to death, though, and that should be the right Phoenix. Alabama Crimson now have a man advantage pushing to this base, but deciding against it, going towards mid lane, looking to get their towers, cross their T's and dot their I's, it seems, going in here into game 1. But all in all, do you really think that Illini Blue has an actual chance of taking a fight back here on an even playing ground, or do you think there's got to wait till Alabama Crimson overextends?
They gotta wait for an opposite. They gotta pick either the Raijin, the Tsukiyomi, Zella on this Hui, somebody. Because right now, I mean, look at the level difference. Maybe only a level in jungle, but 3 levels in mid, 6 levels in ADC, 3 as well in solo, 5 in support. Like, you have no real advantage to lean on right now. And as a team where you want a team fight, 5v5, sure, maybe you've got the better ults with Hunbat, Salt, Thulu ult, but when you just don't have the damage, it doesn't matter how cool your buttons are if those buttons don't kill the enemy team.
Would you, I know this is a dangerous talk for Cast to say, but would you put this one under one of those 99%ers where, unless something really goes wrong for Alabama Crimson, Illini Blue more or less are just really depending on this Phoenix defense, or the tower defense here in their own base to really try to fight back?
Well, let me put it in the phrase of actual game state. So for Illini Blue to really get back into this, they got to first wipe. And they got to wipe at a time where they can get Fire Giant, which then means that they'd have to stay on a siege as Fire Giant's falling off, and then all somehow die to Illini Blue. And then on that Fire Giant would have to pick a couple people out to get some towers, because even with Fire Giant, most people equate to a 10k gold lead. They're still 6.5k gold down. Zella, I'm sure, went back to base to get his starter. Roughneck is probably pretty close to getting his as well. You've got a lot of people that are close to getting their starters. So, like, you're playing at a disadvantage then, and then you've got to then go steal another Fire Giant after that. So you're looking at another 10 plus minutes, 35 plus minutes into this game before you're even really thinking about being in this game. So I think I can pretty confidently say this is that 99%er. So unless Alabama Crimson just twiddle their thumbs for the next 10 minutes and don't really do anything impactful, Illini Blue, sure, they'll have a chance. But as we see them just walking into this left Phoenix, I don't think they're going to let that happen.
Descent into Madness used pretty early on in this team fight as Alabama Crimson is pushing on this left side. Phoenix here ends up zoning the rest of them out, though. That is a pretty successful siege defense for the moment, though, but they forced out the Cthulhu ult, just backed up, didn't use any of their resources. They still have everything rearing to go, and they're just waiting for this minion wave to push in order to follow in. Sylvanas blinks in, knocks up the Khepri. Khepri's going to be dead here before he knows it. Ends up getting Scarab's Blessing off to revive himself, but Cthulhu trading spots for him. Hoonbots ends up getting a pick in the back on the Tsukiyomi. However, the rest of his team is falling. Both frontliners are now down. Scylla finds herself in danger, getting tremored against the wall, unable to walk away. That left side Phoenix will fall. They have fire waves on the Titan. There are still 4 members up on Alabama Crimson, and it's down to the ADC and the jungle. The Hachiman soon to fall here. Ends up using both of his relics to get back under Fountain. Alabama Crimson not even targeting tower right now, or Titan right now. Ends up falling on Burnt Nacho. Hachiman now 5 levels down, just trying to plink away, doing what he can, but the Titan will fall the way of Alabama Crimson. The Chaos side team takes game 1.
Yeah, and just your biggest team fight out, and probably the highest level, the highest level you got in the game, trying to get a pick on the enemy jungle, and that's great. But you need to be able to team fight after that. And when both your frontliners and your mid are dead, it just It's not going to allow you to team fight. So good effort there by Illini Blue. They had a couple pieces there, but it was just way too late for anything to be able to happen to turn that game around.
Do you have any ideas that Illini Blue might want to take into the second game draft to try to turn around, or do you think they're just going to have to go wipe the whiteboard clean and go for a completely new game plan going into game 2?
I mean, it's rough because I've already talked a little bit about the name of just some of the players who are in Alabama Crimson, but the best way to do it is you just got to be better. And I mean, that sounds kind of rough to say, but we'll just get some picks, play some picks that whether they're ones that you're comfortable on, whether you can play as a team together. But just get something where they can kind of play at the space. Because if you're going to try to team fight, I'm pretty sure 9 out of 10 times Alabama Crimson, they're going to win the early game. They're going to be able to snowball, and they're not going to let you play this kind of team fight comp again.
All right, well, Alabama Crimson takes game number 1 here over Illini Blue, but the set is not over yet by any means. Illini Blue definitely has an option or an opportunity to step up in game number 2 and try to take that back. However, but 2, you're going to be, I think, going back. Yeah, he's already left. He's heading back towards the desk. So I'm going to go ahead and toss it back over to him and Drummer to continue to break down this game number 1 and take us into game number 2.
Okay, I made it back in time. Welcome back over here on the desk with myself again, and of course, the wonderful Drummer here. And I've already said a little bit of thoughts as I was over there on the cast. But Drummer, what were some of your thoughts about that game 1?
Geez, well, I mean, I'll be the first to admit that I definitely didn't make the right call on that because I originally had looked to Illini Blue as having the overall advantage, but it seems like Alabama Crimson, I mean, if I had to venture a guess, it seemed like they had just better target priority. Like they knew who to take down early to swing the fights in their favor, and just general map awareness. And we saw some objective steals from that Kabrakin. They just kind of had a better understanding of where their enemy team was and what they were doing. I mean, like you guys were saying on the cast, I don't know if you're Illini Blue. Like, what do you do in that? Maybe your third ban this game around is Kabrakin. Just get him out of there because he seemed pretty impactful in terms of being able to zone out the enemy team with his ultimate.
Excuse me. Apologies about that. But yeah, no, I think right there with the Kabrakin. And the other thing as well, I think something that I didn't think we would cast got a touch there, but just the Scylla didn't really get to have a huge impact there. And part of that sure was just getting a little bit behind, getting picked, maybe not the best, alt and relic usage. We can go on and on about mechanics, but just looking at the comp, you've got a Kepri whose best CC is a pluck, which you're moving the person. So you have you got a big root that takes a bit to go off, and a fear and a knockback dash that you have on Cthulhu, and then Hachi has a stun. Like there's not a lot of great solid CC for that Scylla ult. So with that Scylla, a lot of it had to try to freehand it. And as we saw with a lot of the picks of everyone having some sort of dash mobility, whether that's just movement speed steroid of like Tsukiyomi and Kabrakin, or just a dash that the Raijin and the Hou-Yi had, wasn't really any easy targets. And with that, able to get a little bit of a lead here for the mid laner there, Zord, able to in that Raijin. Because of that, he was able to just rotate to solo, to ADC lane, whatever lane he needed to, and really able to get a lot of pressure to where, sure, Illini Blue early were able to get some of those close 2v2, 3v3 around these buffs, but the minute he rotates in, it becomes one-sided so quickly.
Oh, guaranteed. And I think not for nothing, I want to touch on, we were talking about that Scylla pick, a slight difference between, say, Scylla and Raijin. You can aim Raijin's abilities. His one has that 3-stage hit, but you can adjust your aim while that's hitting. So you're much more easily able to track your opponents. Whereas like with Scylla's abilities, they either go out in a straight line or she throws a circle on the ground. And her ultimate, I mean, it's devastating when it hits, but it does put that huge indicator and lets you know, hey, by the way, it's going to be here in like half a second. You better move. So there's not much adjustment you can do on the fly. You were saying, like you kind of need some kind of CC, a slow, a root, something to interrupt the enemy's movement so you can land it. But I think perhaps you want to take, if you're Illini Blue, perhaps you want to take a mage where you can aim their abilities mid-cast, or you're not so much so locked into one track of motion with your abilities, where they can only go one place and that's all they can do. And if you miss, try the next 4 or 5 seconds, try again.
we'll go ahead and jump into those P's and B's, see if they can make that adjustment. Because like we're kind of in agreement here. Illini Blue definitely had some good pieces, but I think they kind of hurt themselves a little bit with the kind of draft they went. But we'll hop into those P's and B's. And something else I want to kind of prick your brain here as we're kind of talking about mid lane picks and that sort of thing. With that, then, do you want to maybe see them take the Raijin? There wasn't a whole lot of mid lane mages banned. Sure, the Morgan got banned away, and of course Tiamat, Persephone, but Giannis we've seen a lot of, Morgan Le Fay we've kind of seen off and on, and of course, maybe taking that Raijin away as they did have that first pick, picking the Khepri instead. Are you wanting them maybe look to kind of prioritize that mid lane, or just kind of maybe look somewhere else that might have been a bit stronger for them?
I think personally, I think yes, Raijin's very strong, but he's not impossible to deal with. I feel like maybe some frontliners, because they were giving them some trouble. Like I would prioritize, if you're going for a ban, I would definitely try to maybe ban Kabrakan. I think you're right, perhaps trying to pick Raijin yourself. Now, if maybe they're not comfortable enough on Raijin to pick him, so that might be a reason to maybe swap that, maybe ban the Raijin instead. That would come down to just player comfort with the character overall.
Yeah, I think if they're gonna go that same way, if they pick this Raijin, maybe they get that Khepri again. I think that combo is probably even better than that Scylla combo. Scylla doesn't always able to get that ultimate off because that's a pretty long animation. A lot of times you want to use that kind of that mobility to try to position to give you that best chance to hit that ult that can be a little bit difficult to hit at times. But in that Raijin, on the other side of that, if you Khepri to Raijin, he can bang on those drums until you have to kill him, which puts a lot of pressure on you doing that revive. Plus, if he's able to dash in aggressively, get that extra damage, a lot of that Raiju that's easily spread, it could put a lot more pressure to where if Facila's an ult, I can just leap away or Aegis it, or it's not as scary with that Khepri combo.
Oh, definitely. Looks like our bans seem to be identical to the first game, with the Geb and the Tiamat and Odin and RDO. Not bad. I mean, your first two bans, I guess, just get the overpowered characters out of the way.
Yeah, and especially because, like I said, it wasn't super effective, and it wasn't necessarily one particular pick by Illini Crimson. I think it was just some good macro play in that mid to early game to kind of build that lead to where they could play around these objectives. And, of course, like I mentioned, some abilities missed, so by no means do I think Illini need to switch it up. Maybe, sure, in the second phase, I'd love to see a Kabrakan ban, maybe a Sylvanas, one of those picks just so they can't just run it all back. But I'm right there with you. I think there's definitely some interesting to see the same picks and bans. Yamoja, again, a ban by Illini Blue here is their last first phase ban.
Yeah, Yamoja is a decent one. Again, they also banned Persephone again. I don't know. I mean, unless you really just absolutely don't want to see a Persephone, I don't know. You may want to ban somebody like, maybe ban their Hunbats out so they can't just run it back, like you said. Yamoja, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I don't know. I might have prioritized one of the other more problematic characters that you faced in the first game.
Interesting. Rather than look towards the Raijin, which you and I were kind of talking might be a little better in this draft, they look for this Sylvanas. I would say if you're going to go back to that sort of Scylla kind of, first kill this one per character real easy, I think Sylvanas can do a little bit better for that Khepri. He's got that very long knockup in that wrap. That ultimate as well as that root. He's got that pull that gives you a little bit of time as well. So not just one or two, but three CCs that set up really nicely for some good damage. And also, it's what Alabama Crimson ran game one. You don't want them to have it, take it away.
Yeah, why not? If you're not going to ban it, just take it, right? Oh, and Alabama Crimson
of taking,
looks like they're opting for Hunbats themselves this time, and looks like they're going to run back the Raijin, though, which, if it worked once, like, why not? If it isn't broken, right? Don't fix it.
Yeah, and especially because, like, in that particular matchup, Raijin, I think, really dictated a lot of that early game. So when it helped you really, run and own game one, it's open. Might as well take it. Sure, you lose the Sylvanas, but there's multiple mages that you can set up for Raijin damage. You just kind of need them in front of Raijin. With the Taiko drums, with that 1-2 Raiju drum combo, you can do really well. But Illini Blue now, they're going to flip this jungle matchup if this gets locked in. Sure, you get the Hunbats, we're going to take the Tsukiyomi, and by the way, we have a god that can give us 2 of those ults, too.
Yeah, the Morgan, that was banned in the first game, so we'll see if it was a personal choice or if that was a player-specific ban. Because perhaps, I don't know, maybe Illini Blue's Morgan play is disgusting, and we'll have to see. Definitely a lot of good ultimates to pick from for Morgan in this game, though.
I mean, honestly, maybe Khepri's on that lower end of the list, and maybe not even on it, but the other 4 picks, If I'm Morgan, sure, maybe going to Tsukiyomi to chase him down. Maybe I Hunbat's ult to just team fight all around an objective. Maybe I want to initiate with my Sylvanas and just, transform among them, boom, after an invis, get a nice Wrath of Terror for my team. Maybe I just want some Raijin damage in a corridor. Like, there's so many good options for this Morgan, and really, even at this point, it really doesn't matter what Alabama Crimson drafts around this. You still have a Tsukiyomi, a Hunbats, and just even right there, if I stopped it there, those are some solid ultimates as a Morgan player to have.
Oh yeah, just some solid characters. Because it's kind of funny as like a weird anecdote for Morgan's ultimate is it does have its own timer of how long it'll let you transform. But if you're mid ability, it won't de-transform you. So like oddly enough, there could be a top play that exists where she transforms into Tsukiyomi, uses all of his abilities, and right before the transformation ends, using the Tsukiyomi ultimate, which can last for a few seconds if you hit multiple people and depending on travel time. So that's just kind of a funny interaction that we might get to see.
Yeah, and even with like Unbats with that alt Sylvanas, some different ones like that. Maybe not as prominent as that Tsukiyomi one as you're talking, but as we look to the bans, you got what you asked for. Illini Blue say no more Cabrakan. We don't need to deal with that walls. But on the other side, Alabama Crimson banned this Cerberus again, but instead of the Morgan that was picked already, they banned this Cthulhu who didn't have a huge chance to have an impact. Kind of game was a little bit out of hand by the time team fights started happening. But what do you think about that?
Well, I think that the Cthulhu definitely demands respect, right? Like, sure, he was a little behind, didn't really get a chance to be as impactful as he could have, but I think the threat is still there, right? That if things don't go as well for them this game, they may have been worried that if they flip the script on them, that Cthulhu could become much more of a nuisance. So I could see them getting rid of that. And they also know that the enemy team is a solo laner, and Cthulhu is a pretty good solo laner. So yeah, I understand why you'd ban them here. I do like seeing that Hou Yi ban though, coming out of Illini Blue, going for those last two bans being targeted bans. These two characters you don't want to see anymore.
And when the Tsukiyomi Hanbats have already been picked, the Raijin's been run back, you've taken the Sylvanas. Those are only really the two picks from the first game that are left to not want to see. You've taken two of them yourself, and the other one they got again. But interesting here, cover of the Chernobog, because now at this point, sure, you've got a Morgan, you've already got some good transformations, but blocking this Chernobog, is this kind of an alt that you want to give a Morgan? Because this can sometimes be a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate definitely a little bit of a get out of jail free card. I mean, I think if you don't do anything with the ultimate, I think you're in the air for 5 whole seconds. So if absolute desperate circumstances, you can use his ultimate and just sit in the air for 5 seconds and no one can touch you, which isn't the best use of it. But at the same time, like if I'm in a desperate situation, I don't need to be there anymore. I can, and you can fly into the walls and stuff, which is kind of cool. Which you can avoid some damage on that, which is it's interesting. It's a little more technical, I think. Maybe if you're Morgan, maybe you just want to run Tsukiyomi, Sylvanas, one of those more impactful, like higher damage characters. But I don't know, Chernobog, he's a weird one. I mean, great rotations, but I don't know how he's going to fare clearing compared to this Artemis. I think 1v1 potential, I think Artemis is probably slightly favored in that regard, just in lane.
Yeah, I really like this because it's more picks for this team fight. You got this Achilles, which first people are going to think, oh, it counters the Khepri res, which it's in there, but also it's an execute. These low health targets that we're getting away a lot of the time in game one. Now, you've got a way to secure some of those kills if that scenario happens again. You just got to get them to that 30%, and then Achilles can do the rest. And of course, another good transformation for the Morgan, gives kill potential if she gets somebody low with just an invis combo, and then able to just finish it off with the Achilles. And this Artemis, another team fight character, they're pretty all in again, team fight, but very much aggressive team fight. But I'm going to stop myself there. Alabama Crimson lock in the chalk.
Chalk is, I don't know, it's been a while since I've seen a Chalk picked in one of these games, but he's an interesting one. I mean, his ultimate's really good. Gives him some pretty good some defense while he's like channeling the ultimate, and then huge hit, silences, all that kind of stuff. It's a pretty good ability if you're in the middle of a big team, just going for it, disrupts the whole team. Really darn good healing and good mana sustain with his passive, but I don't know. His clear early game's probably better than the Achilles, so he's probably going to fare better in lane than Achilles, but I think you're right with the executes for that. For those team fights and that when you get in those scenarios where a character is going to get away with a sliver of health, Achilles can just clean him up.
We've got our picks all in here with our sides decided. Drummer, do you think we're going to go to game 3, or do you think Alabama Crimson's going to close us in a 2-0?
I don't know. I mean, Crimson does have some pretty strong characters this time. Even though, I mean, I think Illini Blue, I like I like the strategy they're going for. I think they did kind of what they needed to do. They're mixing it up, because game plan for the first game didn't really work out. So, if it doesn't work, try and change it, I guess. But I don't know. I think the slight lead is going to go to Crimson, just because, like, I like their mid lane, I like their jungler. Chernobog, I think, is going to be a bit of an out of left field that they might not be expecting that. So that could be a factor there.
We won't hold you any here more. I'm going to go ahead and send it over to Argent. Argent, hold it down for just a couple seconds. I'll be there to join you.
All right, welcome back to the cast for game number 2, and I see Batuk running down the hallway right now. He's giving me a wave. All right, so I'm just gonna keep talking until he gets here. All right, welcome back, Batuk. We're coming back with you with game number 2 here. I know, again, you similarly talked to the drummer on the desk about what he was liking going into this game 2 comps. What are your personal thoughts and opinions going into this?
Thanks for letting me catch my breath. Well, one thing I'm not sure I like, so it might not be to answer your question here, is Mannequin Sylvanas. Might have some automatic pressure, so I don't think we're going to see anything really happen over there unless we see some nutty plucks by Codaris that end up into some picks with Artemis, but her early game level damage isn't the most securable. But on the other side, they get this Raijin again. It does look like there is a sub, so Crimson is going to be filling in for Zord in the mid lane, but still, you get this Raijin and a Chalk where last game, it was a lot of pressure on the duo in mid side, but this time I'm just screaming early pressure for Alabama around the solo in mid side.
Yeah, I mean, I did say, though, that Sylvanas is a carry character, and the mannequins really helps him facilitate that carry role as he's already hit level 2. However, Chernobog ends up hitting 2 on the side of Alabama Crimson there, allows for a little bit more poke to go the way their side, but now there's a lot of pressure going on, and a lot of sparks flying early in this duo side, though, that now Sylvanas is now going to get pressured and killed for stepping up there. Artemis never hit 2, was unable to help, and because she never hit 2, is now going to fall, but the archers end up getting revenge for their leader there and take down the Kepri in the dual lane there. So it's already, 2-for-1 trade. First blood goes the way of Alabama Crimson. Like you're saying, the pressure should have been on Illini Blue, but I feel like they might have overstepped and misunderstood how much XP they're going to get right away.
Yeah, that was a big part of it, although...
Ooh, big dash from Chernobog lets him sit in the wall, but he doesn't have any help anywhere nearby. Tsukiyomi went already off cooldown. Chernobog now just trying to delay, sitting in his minion wave, sitting in his 1, uses the beads. His ult there, his dash should be coming back up here soon enough. He's 1 HP, not long enough though, and ends up just having to sit there and wait for death, essentially, since nobody else in Alabama Crimson was around. A really great pluck to pull in the Kepri there. Transgressor's Fate sealing him down there using the Brute and Cripple, and now the slow, but not enough damage yet at the level 2 they're at. So, I mean, last game there was, about 4 or 5 minutes for First Blood. Now there's First Blood's already done. There's 4 kills on the board total. Complete tonal shift from game 1.
Yeah, and this is what Illini Blue needed to do. You're not going to be able to get to these late game team fights. All right, let's fight them let's go toe-to-toe with them as best we can. We're going to take them on their own turf. Play some of these pressure picks. Achilles, maybe not as pressure as Chalk is, but when you've got a jungler there, you can have enough damage there to get a kill, as Little Roughneck finds out that he's not the only one that can do some damage. There's Tsukiyomi, not item finished, but able to get with just that abilities, and of course Achilles with his notorious damage with Bluestone. But yeah, no, loving this so far here from Senior, and especially here now with some of these kills. Look at some of these levels. Sure, you're down a level in the jungle and support. ADC's not there, but you've got some kills around the map to where, sure, maybe you're not right now you're leading, but you have some windows to where you can make a play. Maybe get this Raijin in mid, maybe turn on the Hunbats, maybe you get a duo kill here later where, sure, it's not a lead. They're behind, 20 gold, maybe a little bit of XP as some of the levels tick over. But look at that. First 2 level 5s are your mid and solo laner. There's definitely some light in this game, and I'm loving it.
And kind of going off of that as well. Speaking of all these ultimates, and speaking of aggression here, there's a lot of aggression. You forced out the Sylvanas beads. Now the dual side of Alabama Crimson are pressing forward. However, they don't have any more CC to keep them in check. And so we'll end up being able to fall back behind this T1 tower and stay alive there. But going towards this Morgan here, who are you looking to transform into? But again, I want to ask you these questions, but there's a lot of this really early pressure going on as a purple invade is attempted, but ends up having to be backed off by the Tsukiyomi here. I don't think this is going to really turn into a full-blown fight. Yeah, both sides are going their own way. But yeah, again, back to the Morgan. If you're Morgan here, who are you really looking to ult into? Because you have a lot of juicy picks.
After a bit of posturing, the dust settles and everybody goes back to their everyday 9-to-5 waves. As they should, but I honestly, it's kind of nice because as a Morgan, you want to pick that either you're gonna start a fight with your ult or you're going to invis, bring somebody low with your 1-2 combo, maybe get a poly in there as well, and then you're looking to follow up off that with your ultimate. As that kind of aggression, already half HP, level 6, no items finished, level 6, able to half HP that Raijin. But really, it kind of in this game I think can come down a lot to personal preference. You've got, like I mentioned a little bit on the desk, so many options. You can probably, if this Chalk gets ahead as he's going to Transcendence, look to turn into him. You can turn into this Hunbats, turn into this Raijin. Or if you feel like you're confident, you can turn into this Achilles. Get that execute for those targets that you already have low health. Maybe this Tsukiyomi is, double Tsukiyomi is one of those right up there with double Cthulhu that we've seen a lot of the times as Cthulhu and Tsukiyomi both when they came out was kind of the big, not to say meme, but the big fade that we would go through. But I think it's really going to be whoever kind of gets a lead early. If Chalk really starts to kind of bounce back in this lane, or if Achilles kind of gets a bigger lead, maybe goes one of those directions. If it's just trying to start a fight, you might just see it looking as this jungler and
Scare's Blessing ended up being forced out there. The Tsukiyomi Piercing Moonlight takes down Raijin, keeps him alive there. A really good Fear No Evil, keeps him alive just a little bit longer. However, Taiko Drum's not enough to save his life. He will fall to Tsukiyomi. The return kill comes back. Living Nightmare is here with the Chernobog, and he gets a double kill there, taking down Kodoris on Sylvanas as well. Illini Blue gets a little bit too deep to trade the life of the mid laner out, but ends up using 2 members of their own. Overall, I think that's, again, a really good rotation by Alabama Crimson, really good use of the Chernobog ultimate. And Artemis maybe not getting the memo that enemies were on their way, is now running for her life, ends up using the ultimate, but Tusky can't even save her, and she will also fall to the dual lane.
And the big story there in that fight is just an extra person there, Chernobog, able to get right over into that fight and turn that 2v2 into a 3v2, and able to turn that tide really quickly and not just get the 1-for-1 trade back, but also get a 2-for-1. And meanwhile, your Artemis, she's not able to keep up with the Chernobog. She doesn't even have any mobility outside of that 2-stem. And your Morgan just pushed the wave. Might have been able to ult over the Chernobog. Not super effective as we see some aggression here by Burnt Nacho and Warden as they're going to keep going.
Again, they're getting a little bit too deep there. Ends up using the Fatal Strike to get the kill on the Hunbats. And now a second Piercing Moonlight comes through as Xander's now rotated. Warden ends up picking a kill, but ends up losing his Tsukiyomi in the backline. However, Morgan also gets the Chalk down there. So that's a 3-for-1 trade. That looked to be another overstep at Illini Blue, but a really good rotation by Xander, turning into the Tsukiyomi. Gets a second useless Piercing Moonlight off. Tears through the enemy team of Alabama Crimson there. This seems to be the side you want to fight on. This Achilles here. I mean, the Cthulhu had pretty good success last game on getting a lead or staying even while the rest of his team is kind of falling behind. And now the Achilles, I mean, he ended up getting first blood before he even backed and got his first item, but now he has that Mystical Mail online. He's going to be dealing tons of damage just by existing around you, whereas Chalk decided to go the trans, so he's not tanky whatsoever. This is a really risky play by Roughneck here to try to get a little extra damage on somebody who has a lot of protections and a lot of return damage very early on.
I'm curious to know what.
Hold on. Big Fear No Evil used to try to lock down the Sylvanas here. Ends up getting Sylvanas ult in return, but he will fall back at his backline here. So aggression is returned. Let's see if they can get out, though, as Illini Blue is essentially chasing them down and circling them, making sure there's no pathway out, but they do manage to find a single way to get out of there. However, Raijin didn't get out of there fast enough. Piercing Moonlight will take him down. but the living nightmare Chernobog is here, and he will fall in return. And now there's some issues with not Warden here. Again, finding himself against a 1v4, does not get the fatal strike on the XG on the Hunbots, and he too will fall. That was, again, another Illini Blue kind of overextension off of Alabama Crimson trying to back off. I don't really know what they're trying to get by chasing so far, but they should know by now that Alabama Crimson has a really good counter punch potential with this team comp.
Yeah, they just need to play around this Chernobog ult, because the minute Chernobog's ult up, they're losing fights. They take the one in right jungle. Chernobog ult's not up yet. Easy 2 for 0, or 3 for 1, excuse me. But, you know, 2-player advantage. They get a nice pick. They try it again. They've got some ultimates up, but Chernobog ult's up this time, and they get it. And especially because Mashy didn't have time to get his ult off there. If he gets the ult res there on Crimson, that could have been a 2 for 0 rather than a 2 for 1. So a lot of advantages here. And just look at this poke. Gonna be able to heal up a little bit because he's Sylvanas. You know, he's got that too. But not a whole lot here. And if I'm Illini Blue here, I'm starting to realize, okay, we're losing fights where we're not. Oh.
Coderus falling once more. He did not get the message last time, and now his mid laner might have been pulled into the same madness. A transformation into the Chalk, though. Uses the Storm Call to get used to CC immunity. Keeps him alive. Tsukiyomi ends up getting turned around, and the Chernobog that he would have been standing right next to after the revive ends up getting out scot-free. This is a really awkward fight now, since there's 2 different front lines going on. Tsukimi continuing to dive the Chernobog by the tier 2, ends up getting him, but will trade out his life. I'm sure he knew that was happening, while Kepri ends up delaying both the mid laner and the ADC for Illinois Blue. Hunbots here kind of gives him a little bit of peel, and that should be it, a 1 for 1 there, but Coderus is not learning his lesson. He keeps walking into these ward-infested waters of the jungle, and all Alabama Crimson is doing is sitting on a corner and picking him over and over and over again. They have to get ward coverage in control.
Yeah, and look at the wards right there. There's those 2 wards right in that choke point. They know the minute someone's coming up to this Gold Fury, and if you're going to path that normal way, not take that extra step or counter ward, you're just not going to be able to go in there. And especially after you kind of got pinched a little bit, you got poked down to about half. You got to know they're going to try it again. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you, Coderus. You got to get some words out there, my guy.
Yeah, and as we see here, it's about 11 minutes into the game now. The gold lead not as large as it was going into 11 minutes last game, as I believe the Gold Fury had already essentially fallen at that point. Still, though, about a 2K lead in Alabama Crimson's favor. The experience lead not as strong there as well, but there is still definitely the levels favoring Alabama Crimson. Even the solo lane, which had not Warden, was ahead there for quite a while, and pretty large gap. That one death allowed Roughneck to really farm up and get back in here. As we see, Crimson end up falling the Burnt Nacho. Burnt Nacho getting a little bit too aggressive there in Alabama Crimson's jungle, and they took exception to that. Now Morgan trying to find her way out, ends up going back in. We're using the Storm Call on the Chalk to turn a lot of damage. Sylvanas ult following up with that damage, ends up falling 2 members of Alabama Crimson. Sylvanas will fall. Now Morgan's finding herself in trouble, does not get out. So again, the Chernobog making huge, impactful rotations here. Cleans up 2, gets a double kill. Now Warden, all he has to do is try to potentially get a return kill for his fallen mid laner, but nothing will really happen here. It seems he's just going to be standing here and keeping his T1 tower from falling. But Zilla, 12 minutes into the game, is 7-2-4. I am concerned as this game goes on about how dangerous this Chernobog is going to become.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that of those 7 kills, I'm pretty sure 6 of them have come in mid lane or on the solo side of the map. And as an ADC, that really doesn't start happening until late as Crimson, they get the Pyromancer, but Illini Blue trying to get some return. They will get Zella. I don't know if that's worth the Burnt Nacho dying.
Warden ends up returning the kill onto Mashy, though, but he, again, is finding himself too low. Not even Sylvanas could save him. Now Sylvanas is in trouble. They just keep walking in one by one into the grind machine that is Alabama Crimson there. However, that is still a big kill. Warden and Burnt Nacho working together do end up falling the duo lane for Alabama Crimson, both Kepri and Chernobog going down there. I mean, as you were talking on before, though, there's currently a 3-level lead in duo lane already. The Chernobog doesn't really go for as hard hitting of a build as I would have expected. He ends up going Crusher into Jotuns into Odibo. What items do you think he's going to build here? Do you think he goes into the crit since he has such a lead, or do you think he tries to just deal more of this ability damage, more attack speed, go the kin size?
I mean, I'm kind of surprised to see him go the Odibo. Sure, you're Chernobog, you do have that one, but it's not the easiest AoE damage to get off unless you're pretty close to pop it with that 2. It just kind of has to ticking time bomb go off itself. When it's like, I think 3 or 4 seconds, it's pretty easy to avoid unless they're, you're fighting in it with the enemy, which you can force that as well. But I'm very curious to see where he goes with this build. Still has the leather cow, so I'm assuming it's probably from here going to be a little bit more auto attack focus, maybe see an Aussie or something like that. But with this Gold Fury, Burnt Nacho is really far behind enemy lines, and he's on quite a few wards there.
Yeah, Crimson seeing him there and running directly towards him. Burnt Nacho ended up using Piercing Moonlight, finding himself back where he started, though, and he will fall immediately to Zella. Another kill on the notch of the Chernobog's belt here. Now it looks like a 4v5 is about to start in mid lane as Warden and Sylvanas are already low. Solar Flare roots Sylvanas in place, is forced out the beads. This should be a tier 1 tower, and based on how low the front line of Illinois Blue are now, this also should be a Gold Fury. And yeah, Alabama Crimson immediately turning and heading directly for that main objective.
Yeah, they're not grouping up quite the same, and especially with Alabama Crimson, it really doesn't matter who's grouped up, because if Roughneck's there, he's Transcendence Chalk. I think we've all run into that into our ranked and casual games. He does a lot of damage. Maybe not always enough to kill, but he does a lot. Then you've got Hunbat's out of the jungle now with that Hydra's finished, and Hunbat's ult, one of the best team fight ults, not just of Assassins, but in a video game entirely. You got Raijin. Raijin does damage. That's why we see him SPL level almost every set, banned or picked. And then when you have Zella come into every fight with his ult, he's 8-3. He's clearly doing some damage. And then outside of that, sure, Kepri's not going to do damage, but let me just revive one of the other 4 damage dealers and keep the fight going. There's really no bad team fight for Alabama Crimson to take right now, and there's quite a few bad fights for Illini Blue.
We see just the item differential here currently. Artemis now backing to hopefully finish off just her second item. Finally now is completing that Odibo, but she's an entire item behind the Chernobog here. See a little bit of trading going on. Warden is actually getting chased out from his own soul lane by this Chalk here. The Living Nightmare, Chernobog is here, though. He has to turn tail and run. However, gets caught by the root. Stormcall will knock him up. He stays alive using the Fatal Strike and Pridwin procs, but they're now scared to dive a T2, and he ends up turning a lot of damage around, actually, and that's a huge turnaround. Xander rotates in. They get a lot of CC on the Chalk, and he's unable to survive. In the meantime, by the mid lane, Piercing Moonlight jumping between the Raijin and the Hunbats, however, ends up being for naught as Hunbats now stays alive, but might fall. Does fall, but gets revived by the Solar Blessing. And Morgan runs into her own death, trying to get somewhere while invisible, but invisibly falls just a little bit shy. Artemis also falls. Hunbats stays alive at the 1 HP, and that's essentially a deicide in the sense of all the players that were in that fight end up falling. Warden does get the blink, but the Hunbat's jump does secure his way out of there. So yeah, that's a 4-for-1 trade. Chalk ends up falling. His opposite soul laner ends up being the only person staying alive there, ironically enough, when he was the one who initially started that fight in trouble. But the rest of Illinois Blue falling quickly behind there. That just seems to be a very staggered fight. All of Illinois Blue kind of walking in one by one, trying to do their own thing one by one, and all fall as individuals.
And see, these are the kind of games that can be really, really frustrating, especially because you see this all the time when you're playing your ranked game. You gotta you're trying to get that pick, give your team that advantage in some of those kind of grouped up fights. But who do you pick? Like I said, there's 4 people on Alabama Crimson that have pretty much kill potential on all, if not most, of Illini Blue. And the other person that isn't is just gonna bring them back. So there's really no pick to get where, sure, Alabama Crimson, they got the...
By Nacho.
Oh my lord.
Nacho falls immediately again. Fireball Ninja just getting the Fear No Evil use. I mean, some might see that as a waste, but it's definitely worth if he gets the kill there. Morgan walks in aggressively, not acknowledging that all of Alabama Crimson just killed their jungler there 2 seconds ago, and she too will fall. Now Sylvanas and Artemis trying to pick up the slack, starting a fight. Artemis is dead before she can even get her Tusky effective. Sylvanas soon to fall. This is just kind of, I mean, this, like you were kind of saying, this is very much. I've played a few ranked games like this, where in this situation, I'm kind of not Warden watching the rest of my team walk in one by one into where we know the enemy team is, and just all falling immediately. Fire Giant being started up by Alabama Crimson now, not Warden being the only hope to try to contest it. He does push in, but the Khepri abduct very strong here. Gets a lot of CC down on him. Scarab Blessing being forced out though. Warden will fall. Not enough damage he can do. However, all the members of Alabama Crimson are now low. They get the Fire Giant.
Oh, what a dash!
Puts Sugiyumi into the back. Really good dash by Turnabout. He immunes himself from the damage, and Crimson stays alive with less than, I think he might have been less than an HP there, if at all possible. Half a percentage of health. But that was just really good bouncing of damage of the Fire Giant by Alabama Crimson there. A lot of zoning. Actually not even needing to zone, because Illinois Blue tried to walk in and would just fall again here. But this is very similar shades of game one, where it seems as though just the presence and the pressure are so heavy-handed by Alabama Crimson here. It's going to be really hard to see Illinois Blue try to fight back into it. Besides the ADC, the XP chasm isn't that wide. Right now, it's mostly gold with an 11k lead by Alabama Crimson.
Yeah, and also in that jungle 4 level lead there is the Burnt Nacho has just kind of been trying to initiate again and again, and has just kind of died every time. And I think this is the part where sometimes you just gotta, yes, you want to play aggressive. You got a Tsukiyomi, a Morgan, an Artemis, Achilles. They all kind of want to be in your face as random chaos finds out that, yes, everybody on the enemy team does do lots of damage, and especially when you're only level 14, and finds out that Artemis can't get away from that set damage, as this will turn into not just a T1, but a T2 and potentially a Phoenix, as most of Illinois Blue are on the right side of that map.
Yeah, it doesn't look like enough Illinois Blue will actually be around to defend this Phoenix. It falls quicker than anybody can actually get there, leaving just the sole defenders of Morgan and Tsukiyomi on the back. Tsukiyomi, you need to be careful, man. I do not want to see another Piercing Moonlight come out of you for at least another 2 minutes, unless it's absolutely necessary, because you're going to get an 11 on that death, and I don't want to see unless the game is ending here. But looking at this Khepri, though, everyone else on Alabama Crimson is almost essentially solely damaged. That is all that they were focused on. Whereas Khepri, he is the tank. He is the support for this team. He rushed the Thieves and got Thieves online very early on. We're 21 minutes into the game. Sylvanas doesn't have Thieves stacked, so that's a lot of protections he just doesn't have available to him right now. But immediately going to the Spirit Robe, both the relic choices he chose with the Shell and the Med Cloak. Currently, Med Cloak is very effective and, in my opinion, very strong. It allows for a lot of survivability, especially at low health. That mixed in with the Scarab's Blessing. If you're next to the Khepri as Burnt Nacho or anybody else trying to dive their backline, you're going to be having a hell of a time trying to work through all of this defense that Khepri is giving his teammates.
Yeah, and especially with these items. I mean, look at the item difference. Khepri is a full item above not just, the backline, but everybody on the side of Illini Blues. Gold lead is almost surpassing the XP lead now, as some of those level 20s have been hit, so even as such, it's less and less important as we get closer to this game. But there's no real place for Illini Blue look, because a lot of it is, sure, they've been trying to fight, which, yeah, that's what you want to do. Your Tsukiyomi, Morgan, Sylvanas, Achilles, but you also gotta take a step back. Farm is also very important in those levels where, sure, maybe level 12 and level 14 are the biggest difference, 1 or 2 ability levels, in that 1/3 ability or whatnot. But when you're in those level 20, these ultimates now are at their peak potential, maybe 1 level off, 1 other ability. Raijin Dash just does 20 less damage because it's level 4 instead of 5. But when you're level 18 over level, 14, 15, that's 3, 4 levels in there. Sylvanas is trying to start something.
Yeah, Sylvanas takes the aggressive approach, tries to blink ult in to start a fight here. That immediately meets his fate there. But now the team is slightly split up, with the Chagans up picking the kill on the Artemis. The Turnabout getting a kill as well, but not when returning the kill onto the Turnabout. That is their hard carry, but when one hard carry falls, another 3 are stepping up here. Not Warden falls. They have Fire Waves on Titan. These are actually Oni Fire Waves now, and it's all left up to Xander. The closest teammate is 15 seconds out. That right Phoenix is falling as fast as it possibly can. They have waves. They have 4 members up here. I don't see a way of Xander being able to defend this with no changeling available to her. She will just sit in her base and watch as her Titan falls. Alabama Crimson take a strong lead early on in that game number 2 and kept running away with it. Zella, I mean, that man, he put in a lot of work with that living nightmare. He definitely made huge rotations across the map there as Alabama Crimson take the set 2-0 over Illini Blue.
Yeah, some of the people there on the desk were kind of questioning it, but we can see why. Good counter matchup, and that Tsukiyomi with that ultimate. Not even while that Fire Giant had both relics up. Nah, I'll just dash in the wall. I don't need to use them. I'll save them for another day. And then, like you said, 12, 4, and 12. A part of 24 of the team's kills all over the place. Good, rightly so, with that ultimate, but just huge pressure there, and all around a good team effort by everybody here in Alabama Crimson. And it's pretty simple to see why they are now, after this set, 5-0.
Alabama Crimson definitely seems to be a force to beat here. You have to come in strong with a large game plan here. But 2, I'm going to give you a head start right now. If you want to start heading for the desk, I'll continue to wrap up here and throw it to you. But overall, Illinois Blue, they put in a showing nevertheless. They didn't just roll over and allow themselves to be walked over. They stood their ground and tried to fight there. They even took the aggressive approach on that last fight. Was it the right call? Turned out not to be, but it goes to show that they were tenacious and they were willing to sit there and continue to fight in even while down that far. But to continue to break down game number 2 and the rest of the set, I think Batu's gotten there right about now. I'm going to throw it back over to him and Drummer.
Thanks for the head start again, Argent. Running back and forth, getting my cardio in. But I really having to run with this set as it was a pretty quick 2-0 here, Drummer, and again, another strong game here by Alabama Crimson.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they had just knew what they were doing there. Like I think, like last game, it just seemed that their shot calling, their target priority, like general map awareness, just seemed to be a little bit better. I mean, I think you guys even said in the cast talking about ward coverage, they had really good ward coverage. They always seemed to know where their opponents were. I mean, the stat lines reflect. I was just most amazed at Kefri had, I think it was 24 assists. I didn't think there was even a single kill that the Kefri wasn't a part of. Like they were just always there, always doing their job, which I think was part of the difference there. Kefri was just always where they needed to be.
Yeah, and more of the same. I think we said again 5-0 here for the Alabama Crimson team here. Some very notable names here, as not just in AGL and Collegiate, but in just Smite and the rank scene as well. But on the other side, we saw some bright moments here for Illini Blue. Not as many, obviously, as they come away with the 0-2 loss. But what are some you're taking away and trying to turn into good things to turn around next week?
Oh, for Illini Blue?
Yes.
Sure. Well, I think that even though Tsukiyomi didn't do too well in that game, I still think that they, based across both games, I think they had a reasonable showing from their jungler. I think their solo laner did pretty well. Perhaps for ADC, I don't know. Maybe mix up the compositions over in dual lane a little bit. Perhaps because I mean, like I said, I don't think Savas is a bad character. I just think that perhaps maybe with Artemis it didn't work out as well. Maybe a different character in that. Perhaps maybe going for more like burst damage if they want to go for good pressure. Maybe picking up Uller or somebody like that. I mean, more ability-based character. And as for their mid lane, I don't know. Maybe a different, maybe a mid lane with a better escape because Scylla has a pretty good escape, but like Morgan, she invisibles and runs away. Doesn't really have that. Like, let me get over the wall. Let me get like break line of sight with my opponents there. So perhaps focusing on maybe those two roles to improve. But I think their jungler, it was a good showing from jungle and solo, definitely.
It's definitely something they can turn into, and they do have a couple more weeks before our playoffs for the Collegiate go through, but that's not the same thing for our other divisions of AGL here. We're going to take a short break here, get all set up for you, move some people around, get some other casters here, faces here for you, but we're going to be bringing you the AGL quarterfinals for one of our Vikings division, our Diamond division between Legionary Cohort and RIT, so don't go anywhere. We got another exciting set here coming, but for that, we're going to head to a break right now.